Hello everyone, welcome to my April wrap-up. I'm going to go ahead and do these books in the order that I read them, starting with April Fools by Richie Tenz Kersley Cusick. This is a point horror novel. This isn't the best written, but I don't really expect it to be when I'm reading these vintage paperbacks. None of them are really well written, to be honest, but they're just fun and they're just nostalgic and all of that fun stuff. So I really did enjoy this one. I thought the plot was good. I will say though, there's some characters in here that are very, very unlikable. So our main character, she has two friends and they're both just terrible, terrible people. And then another character, his mom, is also blatantly just a bad person. And it's funny because you don't really get that with newer novels necessarily. They're a little bit more subtle in their unlikability, but in these old paperbacks, they make it very blatant that this is a bad person. But anyways, so outside of that though, I really did like this book. I thought it was enjoyable. This kind of has that classic trope where, a group of teenagers kill somebody in a car accident or hurt someone with their car or whatever, and now they're dealing with the consequences. It's one of those type of books. So it was supposed to be like an April Fool's prank gone wrong, basically. And she's the only one that cares. Like the other two friends that were in the car are just like, why are you still thinking about this? Why are you talking about this? That was 2 weeks ago. Get over it. And she's like, but we killed someone. And so she's a tutor and she goes to tutor this guy, and she believes that he was in the car and actually somehow survived, even though there was like an explosion. And so she's supposed to be tutoring him, but she also wants to find out what he knows about the night of the car accident to see if there's anything that could tie her and her friends back to this accident that happened. But yeah, I thought this was a fun, enjoyable time. I would recommend it. And then I did a buddy read with my friend Lily Ashtray, and this is The Mystery Writer. This is a thriller, and it's by the same author that did The Woman in the Library, which I haven't read. I actually own the ebook copy of it, but I haven't read it yet. But this is her newest release, and judging by the title and the cover and the premise, I was very, very excited for this one. And the first 40% was great. I love books about writers and about writing, and it was very interesting, and I was really invested, and I liked the characters. But unfortunately, we hit that middle book lull, and I was like, okay, it's getting kind of boring. I don't, my interest was starting to wane. The main character was starting to drive me nuts, like her personality, and the writing, for some reason, wasn't as good as it was in the beginning. And this book has a lot of typos and a lot of editing errors and inconsistencies. And so I was like, okay. But then the last 30%, it was just terrible. I'm sorry, but it was. It just barreled ahead so fast. Like the pacing of this book was all over the place. And it was like you were sprinting to catch up with the plot. And everything got crazy and wild and didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I had to start rereading things because it was confusing, and the ending was just so over the top and complex. And I mean, it was unique, so I give it props for that. I haven't seen this motive for a murder before, but I'm not entirely sure I liked it. Yeah, this went from a 4 star down to like a 1 star by the end. But I'm going to give it 2 stars because I did enjoy the beginning a lot, and so I'm adding a star for the beginning. But yeah, by the end, I just didn't really like this. This has to do with like conspiracy theories, and I'm just not interested in that. And this author is from Australia, and I don't know if she was trying to make a political statement about guns in America or if she's just kind of ignorant about guns, because she makes it sound like every American has a gun and uses guns. And there was something that happened in the book that didn't seem necessary other than just to show the dangers of guns. And so I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I guess. So yeah, this just wasn't my favorite. I just didn't really like this one by the end. I probably would not recommend this, unfortunately. And then I read a NetGalley arc, Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. And I enjoyed this one more than her first one. I shouldn't say her first one. I meant her last release, which was The Soulmates. That one I did enjoy, but it wasn't anything to shout over the rooftops about. Like, it wasn't stellar. So I did like this one more, but at the same time, I almost DNF'd it in the beginning. So if you feel the same way, I would continue on because the first few chapters, I didn't like the writing style and the characters were very unlikable. And I was like, I cannot spend time with these characters, they're insufferable. But once I got to the POVs that's in the past, when these women are children, then I liked it more. Then it got really interesting. So I still didn't like the now chapters. I still couldn't connect to them. I still thought they were likable and I didn't really care about anything that was happening in the present. But I really liked the past chapters. And so they're what saved the book for me. And so because of that, I would recommend this book and I gave it 4 stars. And this book is about 3 girls who are in the foster care system and they get placed with a woman who's not very kind and treats them horribly, but at least they had each other. And so they became like real sisters and they looked out for each other. And then in the present chapters, they're now adults and they have I can't remember if it's a lawyer that comes to them or if it's a cop. I think it's a detective. So a detective comes to them and informs them that a body has been found buried under the house that they grew up in. So now they're trying to figure out who the body is and trying to piece out if a crime took place when they were younger. I really liked this one. Again, not so much the present chapters, but I really liked the past and I really liked how it all went down and I would recommend it. So the next books I want to talk about were part of a vlog video. Well, one of them was a scavenger hunt vlog, and then the other 3 were part of a Stack of Shame vlog, and I will link those at the end if you're interested in seeing them and if you missed them. So I'm not going to go super into depth with these books because I've already talked about them a lot. But the first one is a book called Mr. Lullaby, and this is my first book by this author. I do own Nightmare Man, and I do plan on reading that hopefully in October. It just seems to have very good fall vibes. But unfortunately, this one didn't quite work for me. I thought it was going to be really interesting in the beginning and I was invested, but I feel like there was too many characters and I don't know, I didn't get connected to any of the characters. There was a really weird, bizarre sex scene in it, which I didn't like, and I don't know, by the end I just didn't really care. And then the very, very end just drops off a cliff, like literally. I'm just reading along and then acknowledgments. And I was like, what? That's the end? Like there's no ending to this book. It just stops and you don't know what happens. You don't know, nothing's wrapped up. One of the characters makes a dumb, nonsensical decision, which I didn't like. And I was just like, where's the ending? And so even though I was sort of enjoying it, but not like completely invested, the fact that it literally doesn't have an ending just really cemented that this book is just not for me. I just don't like that. And it was okay. Like I didn't hate it, but it's not something I'm going to widely recommend or rave over. So yeah, I'm probably going to sell this on Pango. So if you are interested in taking a look for yourself and deciding for yourself whether or not this book is for you, you can go ahead and go on my Pango page and buy this if you're interested. But if you are interested in purchasing this, or if you want to check it out at the library or whatever you decide you want to do, I guess I should tell you what it's about. So this is about a town and there's this old railway tunnel and something ominous is going on with it. It was bricked up a long time ago because people kept disappearing inside of it. But then an earthquake happened and it kind of disrupted the brick wall and people began discovering things like seashells, even though they're nowhere near the ocean, or like big weird white leaves with red veins and just bizarre objects. And then you have all of these people that are in a coma and they think it has something to do with this tunnel. And then you also have a perspective from the villain, which is the most interesting part of this book. Is there's a man who's going about trying to unalive the people in this coma, and he has like a seashell from a tunnel and he hears voices in it and it tells him to do these things. And so he's a bit of a sociopath. I did find his perspective pretty interesting, but anyways, that's what this is basically about. It's just this mysterious tunnel. But as far as ratings go for this book, I'd probably give it 3 stars. Moving on, During my other vlog, I did a Stack of Shame video where I read from authors where I own a few copies of their books, but I just have never read by that author. So the first one I randomly chose from my jar was Mary Downing Hahn, and I chose The 13th Cat from her because I had this cute little cat and I enjoy cats, so I just thought that would be a good place to start. And I liked this. I thought it was really cute. This is middle grade. And I just thought this was a fun, cute story. I felt like it was unique and I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know why it's described as a thriller because I would not classify this as a thriller. This has definite fantasy elements to it. And to me, thrillers are grounded in reality. So I don't know why it's called a thriller. Maybe because it's thrilling. I don't know. I would classify this as like fantasy or a supernatural tale or something. Like, I wouldn't classify this as a thriller. This is about a girl who decides to go live with her aunt for the summer because she lives in the big city and her mom works all the time. And so she's just kind of at their small apartment by herself most of the time. So she decides she'd rather go to her aunt's house where she has room to run around and she lives in a suburb and she's got woods behind her house and just sounds like she could have some fun adventures there and not just be stuck inside all day. And she makes friends with a little girl across the street, and she also has a neighbor that lives in these woods, and her aunt kind of tells you just to stay away from her because she's strange and she's weird and she's mean and all of these things. And this little girl sees all of these black cats everywhere and discovers that they are actually owned by this woman, and she starts to suspect that her neighbor might be a witch. And she kind of has some altercations with her, and bad things go down, and they kind of have this rivalry. But I don't know, I just thought it was cute and it was fun, and I enjoyed my time with this one. I would probably give it 4 stars. So the next book I read for that vlog was Room for Rent, and this is by Noelle Ilhe. Iley. I don't know how to say this last name. Maybe you can see for yourself how to spell or pronounce that. So this is about a woman who's going to college and she only has one more semester left and she doesn't have any money. She's very poor and all of the housing around the campus is very expensive or is already taken. And so she's forced to rent out this like really dingy, tiny house that's kind of disgusting, but she just needs it for 4 months. That's all she needs. And so even though she shows up and the roommate's pretty creepy and pretty weird, she feels like she doesn't have any other choice. So she moves in with this person, but then creepy things start to happen. So I was really invested with this one right away. I thought it was very entertaining, very interesting, and I was very excited. Loved the vibes, loved the atmosphere. But about a third of the way in, I felt like it was very, very obvious what was really going on, and I knew exactly how this book was going to play out. You know, I thought maybe is she going to throw a curveball that you don't see coming, but no, it played out exactly how I thought it was going to. So that was a bit of a disappointment because it made the middle seem very repetitive and kind of a slog because there was nothing else interesting going on. It was just a pretty straightforward book. So I didn't hate it. I did enjoy reading it, but at the same time, it's not something that completely blew me away. And then there were certain aspects that I didn't like about it. And if you want those thoughts, you can see my vlog. But anyways, yeah, I enjoyed the last 2 chapters. I thought they were really fun and entertaining, but I felt like the climax itself was even slow. Like it was supposed to be fast paced. It was supposed to be like stuff happening. But I felt like because we were so much in our head with so much explanation for things that I already knew, it felt very slow when it was supposed to be fast. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but so it was okay. I'd probably give it about 3.5 stars. Then the last book I read in that vlog was Pines by Blake Crouch, and I decided to DNF this one. I couldn't stand the main character. He drove me insane. He did not act like a Secret Service agent, and he was very moody, and he was egotistical, and I just didn't care for him. I couldn't root for him. I did skim ahead to see what the twists were, and the first one I didn't have any feelings for. I was just like, meh. But when I read the ending, I did enjoy the reveal at the end. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a good idea. But I just feel like this book wasn't executed very well. Like, I feel like the payoff wasn't enough. Like you'd have to slog through this main character, slog through all these bad decisions, slog through this plot I didn't care about just to get to the very end. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then the end, like, I don't know, just wasn't worth it for me. So yeah, I got to page 100, skimmed to page 150 to see the first twist, and then I read the ending. So I don't know, it makes me nervous to read the rest of his books. I am going to because I already own his books. And this is his debut novel, so I'm hoping the other ones are better and will work better for me, and we'll see. So I'm not going to give this a rating. I don't rate books that I DNF'd. If I did, obviously it'd be like a 1 star. Then I read Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is the last book by Riley Sager that I needed to read, and now I've read all of his. So I'm going to be doing a video about him in June, so be on the lookout for that. So I would probably give this about 3.5 stars. I would give it 4, but there's other books in the past I've given 4, and I don't think this is quite as good as those, so I couldn't give it the 4-star rating. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this one, especially the beginning. I was really into it. This is kind of what I wanted the Final Girls support group by Grady Hendrix to be, sort of. By the end, not so much, but in the beginning, this is what I wanted from that book. But anyway, so this is about a girl who, if you can't tell from the title, is a final girl. And there's 3 of them that have survived these massacres, and one of them ends up committing suicide, and so she's really torn up about it. So then the other final girl ends up showing up on her doorstep and ends up living with her for a while, and they're trying to sort through their feelings and different things. But then they come to realize that maybe it wasn't suicide, that maybe she was murdered. So they're trying to figure out what went wrong with that. So the second half of this book had a lot of sex in it, and that's just not really my thing. Like, it wasn't like super explicit or anything, but it's just the fact that it was just happening like over and over and over. It was like that was the whole plot, was just having sex with this guy and having sex with that guy, and then I went and had sex with this guy, and I don't know, this just isn't my favorite thing. This is his debut novel, so I'm glad he decided to stray away from that in the future, but I don't know. So I did enjoy this one. I did like it. I did not see who the killer was, so that was good. There was another plot twist that I did see coming pretty early on, but I mean, that happens. You can't be surprised by every twist because it's just not the nature of things when you read a lot of thrillers. But I thought it was good for what it was, but it's not like my favorite Riley Sager, so 3.5 stars. And then the last book I read in the month of April is a short story collection called Lefty. This is a YA horror, and it's written by Rebecca Rossi, who is actually the host for my book club that I am a part of on Instagram called the You'll Read Too book club. So that was really exciting to be able to read this short story collection from somebody that I actually know from the internet. So there's 10 stories in this collection, and my 3 favorite were one called Safety in Numbers, and this is about a boy who is kind of driven crazy by his parents, who are very passive aggressive towards each other, and he wishes that they would just outwardly fight because he's just sick of the way that they argue, but do it so like nicely, you know. And then another story I really enjoyed was called No Talking, about some inconsiderate people at a theater that are talking and laughing during the movie, which can obviously be very irritating. And then the last story I really enjoyed was called Smashing the Clowns. And this is about a woman who kind of has a fetish for clowns, and so her friend kind of doesn't get it and is like, why is she obsessed with getting with clowns? That's kind of weird. So anyways, those were the 3 stories that I really liked. And I really enjoyed it because at the very end, the author went through every story and kind of told you her inspiration for writing each story. And I thought that was really fun and interesting. And I liked getting a glimpse into that writing process. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. And that's all the books I have for the month of April. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing what I was reading. Please let me know in the comments down below what your favorite book was for this month. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel and you want to, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll never miss a video from me. And please hit the like button if you liked this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!